Hi everyone, welcome to the GoldFish Report. I'm your host, Louisa. Today is Friday, September 28th, 2018, and this is our weekly Country Roads with our friend Winston Trout. And how are you, Winston?
Well, I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
Okay, for a Friday after that, slaughtering in the Senate yesterday, I think everybody's a little bit, stunned and numb after witnessing this character assassination against Judge Kavanaugh. We're going to talk about that today a little bit. We're also going to do some question and answers from our viewers. From our past reports, I went back to at least 260, our report number 260, and took questions from our viewers from the comment section of our videos, mostly from our YouTube videos. And so Winston's going to answer those or clarify those questions for people. So Winston, I just want to know, what was your basic overall, opinion of the hearing yesterday?
Well, first of all, as I have mentioned, sometimes you have to do what's called loving detachment, and so to prevent becoming emotionally involved. My position is I watch those things. I've seen it plenty of times before. But to say that I became emotionally involved in the conversations and all those kind of things is simply not true, because I don't.
Yeah.
But that helps you to look at things perhaps more objectively and to hear what's being said, how it's being said. You always have to think. Of course, it's always second guessing when you do this, but you have to imagine what would cause someone to say a particular thing. And so, knowing, as we've spoken of in the past, about CIA, mind programming, and all these kind of things, and also knowing that the technology that has been developed, I think it's called, what is it? Anyway, they have a technique where they can actually hit your skull and you can hear voices in your head.
Yeah, voice to skull.
Which would, register somewhere in your memory to be even be recalled sometime in the future. It used to be when all of this business about sexual abuse first came to the public attention. And if we want to go back and look at the history of it, we can go all the way back to Sigmund Freud. Because Freud set back psychoanalysis years and years and years because he refused, even though his patients and so forth were reporting abuse situations, because he was perhaps so Victorian or classical, he did not believe that the gentlemen of Vienna or wherever he was working, he did not believe that they would be capable of doing any such thing, which was very naive on his part. So when you start to go back and try to bring the thing forward, I'll go all the way back to Sigmund Freud, because he was unwilling to accept the facts that were presented to him. And so he believed that, for instance, when a client, a patient would come in and report something, the only thing he would say, well, that must be a delusion. And so then, based upon his own personal sexual prejudice, he developed a scientific theory, if you want to call it that, which was absolutely based on incorrect principle. And so, he, like I say, Sigmund Freud did a lot, in that field, psychoanalysis, psychology, whatever you want to call it. He did a lot, but he also put in certain blocks to progress in certain areas. So a lot of things developed. in that community of therapists who were trying to deal with some of these things. He just put a wall up,
Mm.
and this wall continued for a very long time. Uh, Again, if you look at, I don't know, the attitude of people in the 20th century, even the people who were working in the therapy fields and so forth. Again, a therapist is only as good as their own exposure. And so when you have therapists who are trying to work with people, that they themselves will be highly prejudiced by their own life's experience. And in consequence of that, there was a whole lot of I don't know, a whole lot of development that needed to be done. Now, I'll give you my own life's experience. I mean, as a young person, as far as any kind of what we call today pedophilia, uh, I had never heard of it. It was never spoken of. Was it going on all around me? No doubt. But I never had a confrontation or a firsthand account or any kind of definite exposure to it till I was 31 years old. And then, and then it suddenly turned into an explosion. And once I started to look at that situation very carefully, I mean, I was shocked. I was shocked at the amount or the depth of what was actually going on in the real world. Now, also around that period of time, uh, immediately when some of these things were being exposed, those who promoted for organizational reasons, I'm not talking about, somebody down the street. I'm talking about those who had used pedophilia, child abuse as an organizational expediency. If you want to call it Satanism and all that kind of stuff, you can. I'm just saying, as an organizational expediency to solidify the organizations that they were trying to sustain. Once a lot of these things came out into the public view, I mean, again, as a young person, I was born in 1948, and it was way into the 70s before I even heard about such a thing. Now, why was that? Because socially, it was unacceptable to even speak of those things, much less do something to correct the problem. Okay, so I think many, perhaps in my generation, had a wake-up call. I'll put it that way, because we simply were not exposed to it. I didn't know that anything like that was going on. But once those things became exposed publicly, where people were willing, at the very least, to talk about it and even put it into the legal system, as an assault and as rape. Until they were willing to do that and get that public exposure to it, then perhaps a lot of people were not aware of it. Now, to defend the organizational parameters, they went to work on that, and they injected, how should I say, rabbit trails.
They who?
The
They
organizations.
the organizations supporting pedophilia and stuff?
Yep.
Okay. Well, I wanted to get back to the Kavanaugh hearing whenever you're done.
Well, but I'm getting to the Kavanaugh thing.
Okay.
Because when you have studied deeply into
Mhm.
the origins and the development
Mhm.
of the exposure of these things, then you look at the testimony that was given just with a little bit clearer picture, because you look for certain things. You listen to certain words. How does someone express themselves, so forth, like this. And so, like I say, with that exposure in mind, and and research, for the last 40 years, because I might hear things that other people might not hear. Let's put it that way. So yeah, okay. If you want to go into the actual uh, hearing, we can do that. I just want to give that basis, because what's being expressed here is of that nature.
Right. Well, I think you're absolutely right about that, and definitely Sigmund Freud, although he did pioneer some areas, he definitely, I think, did hold back other areas of
Yeah, he did.
understanding. Definitely. Um, who knows why he committed suicide? But I think
Too much cocaine.
well, he's also very jealous of his brother, and he lived his life like that. And then I think he came to terms with, but whatever, that's not what this is about. I
Yep.
don't want to digress too much. Okay. So let's get back on this track. Okay. We know that in Judge Kavanaugh's opening statement that all the people that this Dr. Ford had said, claimed were with her. Sadly, her stories changed several times. Well, it was 3, no, it was 4, then it was, maybe these other people were there also, and I'm not sure what house it was at or where this was. I mean, are you serious? So look, so with all of this, obviously Judge Kavanaugh's been a judge on the appellate court of appeals, so, you know, um, he has been vetted, thoroughly for all his positions. He actually worked with President Bush for several years, and I think he has been, thoroughly, thoroughly vetted. Like, how can this just come out of nowhere? And is it not a coincidence that her father was involved in CIA mind control, MK Ultra, and that she teaches psychology? And let me just say, this whole thing just, if it, I'll tell you, Winston, if it smells like a rat and looks like a rat, it's a rat. This is how it is. And this, but the point that I wanted to make today was 2 points. One, about bearing false witness against thy neighbor. Okay, so this is one of the 10 commandments. And secondly, that as sad as this is that people had to watch this, I'm going to say something. This happens every day in the family court systems throughout this country. I can tell you, I've spoken to people all across this country who have dealt with these horrific things that the family courts have done to families. And I can tell you with my firsthand experience that I sat here watching this testimony yesterday, and I had to turn it off because I myself went through the very same thing, and I'm still dealing with it. When they want to destroy your character and they want to destroy you, they will stop at nothing. And I mean nothing. Talk about what Judge Kavanaugh went through sitting there even as a judge. He even knew the law better than the senators questioning him, as he had to explain that the FBI doesn't come to conclusions. So what's the point of an investigation if they don't come to conclusions when there's nothing to investigate? Now it was, but he's smart and he handled that question and all the questions brilliantly. But as emotional as he got when it came to talking about his children, there is nothing more destructive than what this does to your family, how marked you are for the rest of your life, whether if you're truly innocent, this is what I'm talking about. If you're not, then it's a completely different discussion. But I have to say that I don't see any validity in her claims myself, even as and I'm a trained psychology researcher. I worked in research at a major medical school, university, and facility, and I worked in research. I'm very well trained, and I can tell you that I have a lot of problems with her testimony, as many people do, even if you're not trained in psychology or research. But particularly those who are, it's particularly concerning. Anytime you're dealing with recovered memories, you just never know if they were implanted or not. You don't know if they were with this new targeting of individuals, gang stalking, as Winston said, this voice to skull technology, you don't know where this is coming from because she's the only one that has the memory. all the other people she said were there have no memory of it. So you really have to start wondering and questioning. This woman should have a psychological evaluation, a psychiatric evaluation to determine whether she's, not hallucinating. I mean, where is the due process? Okay, so that's one point. But imagine what Judge Kavanaugh went through, and then imagine wrongfully taking your children away because you just decided to believe those those allegations without having any fact-finding hearings. Imagine them saying, and well, you're drinking beer, so we're going to send child protective services because you have minor children. We're going to send child protective services to your house randomly, force you to come in, strip half naked in front of people, and take urine samples multiple times at random for no reason, simply just to harass you, break you down, and get you to submit your will to the establishment. Okay, this is what happened to me, folks. And I'm not going into the details of my case, but I'm going to tell you that this happens all the time, and nobody cared. They care because it's a man sitting in front of the world. Yes, that didn't happen to me. I wasn't in front of the world. But these things where they want to go on a character assassination, where elements of the deep state have some personal interest, reason to gain by destroying you and your family, they will stop at nothing. And all I can say is I hope that they get this vote going this morning. By the time we get this published, the vote may already been taken. I don't see any reason why this man should not be approved. Although I'm not saying I think he's an angel. I think in terms of his decisions, there's some questions. In terms of the fact that he's part establishment, I certainly have concerns about that. The fact that he worked with Bush and within this cabinet, and is he part of the establishment? Maybe he is. But maybe he knows it well enough to know how to handle what's coming. And there's many reports that there's going to be mass arrests imminent. That this is why the president is testing this presidential emergency alert system, and we are getting ready to once and for all take this plot to enslave every man, human, and child on this planet, as JFK tried to do and was killed and stopped from doing. That Donald Trump is here to try to do now. Is Donald Trump an angel? Well, we don't know that, but who, is he a perfect person? Absolutely not. But he right now is the only hope for the United States and the military that's behind him. So this is why I wanted to bring this up today, that the deep state know what's coming. The military tribunals are coming. The executive orders are set and ready to do this, because this country was in the process of being destroyed, and most people who decided that they were too sick and tired of dealing with politics, who withdrew from politics, stopped watching the store, and in the process, they used our freedom against us to destroy us from within. This is what has happened. So I'm telling you that this has happened to many people, myself included, and it isn't over, because they will stop at nothing. The family court systems must be reformed, period. It's a disaster. There's no overcount. There's no oversight, and there's no accountability. That was a Freudian slip. We'll give him that credit. But that's the problem. The problem is no oversight, no accountability, because it's corrupt every step of the way up. And
follow the money.
Follow the money. That's what it is, and that's exactly what happens here. So, okay, I'm done with my soapbox, and I also wanted to say to some viewers who do make comments in the comment section, I just want to remind you that if you're not happy with this program, you're always welcome to go find Winston elsewhere, or just go buy his DVDs, but I think I'm going to let Winston comment on that. But if you're watching this program and you're seeing commercials or these little yellow bars at the bottom of the play bar, that where you press play and it goes across the line, the timeline there, this is not our original channel. And although I have told people that they can bootleg this because we were deleted off of YouTube, our original channel, and they completely shadow ban us and completely filter, how many views get through and how many comments are allowed to be made. So it's up to our viewers to spread this far and wide, and I have expressed that that's okay to do. But you cannot take our logo, the GoldFish Report. That you cannot do, because we own the URL for it, and we also have We also have legal rights to it. So uh, if you want to make sure you're getting the authentic, Goldfish report, just go to our website at www.thegoldfishreport.com. Our links to where we publish our videos are all on our front page. That's all you have to do. Click on the link. It'll take you right to the authentic and official Goldfish Report pages in order for you to access the true links. Because, folks, when it does appear on someone else's channel, I cannot be, responsible for whether they edit something into it and whether the information is accurate. So you're going to have to take that risk that, and trust whoever's channel that is, that whatever is being displayed on their channel is an authentic and official Goldfish report, unedited. So I can't guarantee that, and I won't. Only on our channel can I assure you that it's an original upload from Goldfish Report. So, okay. So having said that, Winston, did you want to comment any more about the Kavanaugh?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
First off, let's talk about who it is we're talking about. And as I have mentioned, this shadow government concept is very apparent here, because as I was listening to testimony from this lady, when the Republicans had their turn, they allowed a lady, an attorney, who had a great deal of experience in these areas. They turned their time to her to ask appropriate questions that went to the subject matter. And then when it was the Democrats' turn, then they would come on and start. Oh my goodness, they would not ask any questions or raise any issues germane to the reason they had brought her there. They were simply saying, what a wonderful person you are, how strong you are. It just went on and on and on. So again, if they're having a hearing to determine the credibility of someone who had been nominated to the Supreme Court, those who were of the Democratic side of the aisle avoided it.
Right.
And I think the reason why they had to do that, because they never thought it would come to this. Mm. They were not expecting Kavanaugh to say, okay, let's have the hearing.
Right.
And so they were caught short, because they actually had nothing to say of any substantial nature, and it should have been obvious to them by the time this hearing was had that they had been exposed for what their attempt had been. And so they avoided, in their conversations when it was their turn to speak, they avoided at all costs anything that was germane to the reason why they were having that hearing. And so when you see that, you have to think, okay, well, it's obvious that, that they weren't interested in establishing the credibility or non-credibility of the candidate that had been nominated to take this seat. And so, like I say, for anybody that's, been involved in corporate infighting or some of these things, the tactic that was being used should be obvious. It should be quite obvious. And so if you'll just, stop and think, just watch a little while, for those who haven't watched any of that, you can see it's on the internet. Okay. So when it was the Republican side, they would turn their time to someone who was a professional, who had years and years and years of experience in that exact issue. And then when it was the Democrat side, they simply were pontificating. It was so obvious that it made, I mean, after I watched a little bit of that, I think, oh, geez, here we go again. But let me go back, because this will come up a little bit later in some of the other comments I'm going to make about some of the subjects, that I'll be bringing up. And that is, who is it we're dealing with here? Now, we have spoken a great deal in the past about the change in government, so forth, the interim government. Whether you're a Democrat or Republican, you're still involved in the mindset and the procedures of shadow government. And that is what was formed in 1871 as a result of the federal government taking control of the country. And so all these things have evolved, and like we've said in the past, anything established on false concepts, at some point in time, it will fail. And it has failed. And that's why we have had to have the military step forward with their interim republic. And in the background, they're working very diligently to correct these things. So the thing you just watched was the hearing, the Senate hearing on this appointment, all this kind of stuff. To me, it's just nonsensical. Now, I will report speaking to individuals who are involved in some rather significant transactions. And it's not me, I'm not involved in those things, but they have reported to me that, make no mistake, the military is in control. Make no mistake. And so that's good news. We don't hear a lot about some of those things, but because I'm in contact with individuals who are, they report to me, make no mistake, Mr. Trump is only a figurehead.
Yep.
And the military is running this. So, that makes, certainly encourages me, I say, I've known about some of these things from various sources, which I've reported in the past. I've been just as honest and open about all this and given as much information as I had at the time. I've given that information so that people would be encouraged. Because if you sit and listen to this malarkey that's on the internet about all these Senate hearings and all this crazy stuff that's going on, you would become despondent.
Yeah, if
you didn't believe that there was a solution to the problem. And the problem is being resolved by individuals who are fully capable of doing so. And they're working on it in the background. When will it come forward? Well, it is coming forward bit by bit, in my estimation of slowly, too slowly to suit me, but it is coming forward bit by bit. Now, it has been said that the president of the government, and I say a lot of these things tongue in cheek, but anyway, it's been reported that he is going to use the communication system on cell phones to simply demonstrate to the public that he can get to them.
Of course.
I think he had scheduled an announcement on cell phones until this latest hurricane or what it was hit, and so he felt like perhaps that it would be non-productive to do it at that time. But
Right.
what is the new announced date of that communication? What he said, maybe you can
It's October 3rd.
elucidate.
Right.
Uh-huh.
It's October 3rd.
Do you have any of the details on that?
Well, what I can tell you is it's supposed to be a test, but we'll see. I think a lot of people, different areas have been tested. Many have been tested. A lot of people have been reporting that their areas have been tested, especially in California, since the 40% of the sealed indictments are in the state of California. Um, okay, so this is it. So the president had to declare, as everyone knows, since 9/11, we've been at a declared national emergency uh, under war, war on terror, the war that you
Mm-hmm.
can never win, right? Again, I think in 2000,
17.
yeah, I think Trump also declared, he carried that forward. And what has happened as a result of being declared a state of emergency, being under wartime, is that uh, what the cabal underestimated was the fact that they were using this fake declared this fake, after 9/11, because it was an inside job, in my opinion. After 9/11, they were going to, as they did with the Patriot Act, enforce very draconian, um, deep state, I would say, what is it, police state measures um, on the American people, which they've done. But in their arrogance, they didn't realize or underestimated the fact that they too were being included in that. And during a time of war, you have people who acted against the interests of the United States government, which is treason. It's treason even if you don't, but especially during wartime, it's military tribunals, death by hanging if convicted, or who knows what else, electric chair, firing squad. This is what they're facing. This is why they're doing what they're doing, because so this emergency alert system will be able to communicate with people because in retaliation, see, I think we can say the good versus evil, light versus dark. I think the winner is we already know who the winner is, but that doesn't mean the loser is going to go out quietly and willingly, and they're not. They're going to cause as much destruction, chaos, and havoc as they possibly can. That's why this has to get done timely so we can get things under control, because humanity has to be free from this slave hostage status that we've been under. But because the deep state, Hillary Clinton and the uranium one, the emails, doing this during a time of war, turning on the enemy, Dianne Feinstein, or I should say Senator, I have no respect for this woman. I'm sorry, Senator Frankenstein. I have no respect for this woman. You can comment all your hate comments you want, but I have no respect for her after, especially seeing her intimidating this senator who is supposed to be voting this morning. It was not pleasant. Q posted it on the Q board, folks, on the Q board, this image. And so as in a time of war, when you have members of the government who knowingly and willingly aid and abet the enemy, who sell state secrets and sell military state secrets, including where our nuclear arsenals are located, and strategies, information in the emails, including who our operatives were, who were all killed in China, by the way. 21, as many as 21 is reported. So so this is called treason, of course, and what you have here is a situation that will, with the evidence, will result in execution, and this is what they're facing. So let me just, Winston, just since we brought it up, this is the picture that Q posted. Take a look at Senator Feinstein. Look at this woman's face, her body posture, her arm up on the wall is dictating she's taking superiority dictatorship over this woman who clearly looks, uncomfortable, does not shadow, does not, I would say, mimic or mirror, I would say, mirror is a better term, the expressions on Feinstein's face. It's very obvious what's going on here. So it'll be interesting to see what the vote will be today and how she votes, because this is very sad to see this going on. But we know they expose themselves, as Winston just said, they expose themselves for who they are and what their agenda is. The question is, how messy of a cleanup job is it going to be? And let's hope that this emergency broadcast system, because they're in charge, they own, they're in bed with Google, Jack Dorsey at Twitter, and all these, other social media platforms. They do expect a complete, whiteout of, or maybe a complete banning, or even a takedown of the grid. So you know what? This is why the president has to his access the emergency broadcast system, which is run through the NSA, the good guys at the NSA. So this is the communication system he will use to communicate with every one of us via our cell phones. And if you don't have a cell phone, maybe your TV, maybe the radio. But if you have elderly family members who don't have cell phones or access to this, and an emergency broadcast comes in, please see if you can contact them or go to them and inform them too, because they will be very confused. Some people may be confused if they don't know what's going on because they don't get the message. But that's really the update on that.
Okay, good. Yeah, so the communications are under the control of the military, and who are the power behind the throne, if you want to call it that. And I also want to comment on what you had brought up, that after 9/11 there were certain executive orders or certain things being promoted as far as being into a wartime modality. And then when the president came in, he further extended that. Again, like I always say, follow the money. And so as a part of this extension that was put into effect apparently in November of 2017, the money of those who have profited by their treason can and will be seized.
Exactly.
And like I said, nobody works for free, or at least in that world, nobody works for free. And so once these organizations have been stripped of their money, they lose their power, because those to whom they were paying money to carry out their program will simply stop. If you take the money out of drugs, there's no more illicit drugs. You take the money out of prostitution, there's no more prostitution. You take the money out of gambling, there's no more gambling. And so that's exactly what is being done with this newest extension of the wartime powers of the chief executive.
Right, wartime powers.
Yeah, he's stripping the money.
He can consolidate, so all the powers get consolidated to the executive branch, which is why then they can start moving along. That's why this confirmation of Kavanaugh needs to happen timely, so they can declare that, consolidate that power at the executive branch, to executive level.
For public consumption.
Yeah.
Again, most of the things that are being done presently are because the public has been erroneously propagandized the last 70 years. And in consequence of that, the mindset of people would reject because again, a lot of these things that come up because people are not informed, they have no experience with it, it causes cognitive dissonance, and people therefore would be unwilling. People don't like to change. People don't. I mean, I don't like to change. You know, the older you get, you know, the less likely you are to accept change. And so, in consequence, yeah, you're on mute now. I see you laughing, but you're on. Yeah, cool. Anyway, but because of these changes and the implications for change, every effort is being made so that the public would not panic and not support the project because of cognitive dissonance. You're on mute.
Thanks for reminding me. Oh, I had to sneeze.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's in the air, but it's I
Yeah.
mean, it's ragweed season, but it's pretty bad, yeah.
So I can see the necessity of the steps and procedures
Mm-hmm.
that are actually being taken, uh, you know, to make sure that the public will come into support of the change. Now, it's not just a change per se; it's more of a rollback. For
Mm-hmm.
instance, on the global reset of the money, it's not a change; it's a rollback. And then once we've got that rollback into effect, then we can keep rolling back and rolling back and rolling back. And so, you know, eventually we'll roll back to the Garden of Eden. And, you know, just this is a little funny. How do we know that Adam and Eve, you know, didn't use money?
Yeah,
Because they didn't have any pockets to put their money in.
that's right. Hey, G-strings made out of leaves.
Oh, that was after. I was just making a little funny.
That's
But
after they bit the tree of knowledge. Had a
yeah,
bite of the apple from the tree of knowledge. Yeah,
yeah, I guess.
supposedly,
I don't
supposedly.
like apples
Anyway,
myself. But anyway, uh, you know, when a society, when a planet, when the people on the planet have gotten so far in one direction that their utter destruction will follow if something is not done to intervene. And that's where we were. But now we're starting a rollback gradually, because you have to go slow at first, because like I say, because of cognitive dissonance, lack of information, and good solid logic on the part of people, we're trying to save the people.
Hmm.
I mean, that's God's objective,
Yeah.
to save the people. He don't care about government and all the rest of this stuff, but he is concerned about individual people. And so as the rollback starts, it'll have to be very slow. And then once one thing's been accomplished, you can speed up, you can speed up, you can speed up. Now, you know, listening to the various commentators on the internet and so forth, you know, they project how many linear years. I mean, even Scott Werner did that, and I had to slow him down a little bit. But some of the others that I've listened to have projected, based upon scientific things that go on with energies in the universe and the sun and all these kind of things. You know, they project a certain amount of linear time that is needed to effect the change. And this one fellow I was listening to, he was projecting, because of the parameters of the energy levels that are coming into the planet. He had projected that in order to accomplish a certain step in the change, it would take 5 years. And I don't think so. I think it's going to be a whole lot faster than that. You know, one other who seems to look into these things. He said, as far as uh, the people, not the planet is already there, but the people who inhabit the planet, as far as catching up to
Mm,
the progress of the planet itself, or Gaia, if you want to call it that. He says we're about 29% fulfilled in that objective. Now, so if you know, with all the stuff that's been going on, humanity has actually arisen from where we were in our natural progression. If we're already approximately 1/3 of the way there,
mm,
and if what I say is correct, that when we first started out, it's slowly, 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 but speeding up, speeding up, and speeding up. If we've already accomplished about 1/3 of what's necessary, what will happen when the money is corrected? How big of a jump will that put us? I mean, are we going to jump up to, I mean, you know, so in other words, what I'm saying is the projected timelines, but some of these that seem to know, and, you know, and basing it on energetics of the planet, scientific, you know, scientific facts and so forth, they're projecting, you know, it might take, you know, this much. But if we as people can move a little bit faster, then this much turns into this much. And I think, you know, in listening to the various comments that have been made for a number of years, the people in the universe, the other people in the galaxy, and all that kind of stuff, have been utterly shocked at how quickly the people on planet Earth have progressed. They're actually shocked,
mm,
and so that's why you see so many, like James Gilliland said. He said if all of the ships around the planet simply uncloaked, he said he said you probably couldn't even see the sun or the stars. He said parking is kind of a problem out there in the atmosphere. There are
mm.
so many ships in our around our planet. And so, but why are they here? They're watching, they're learning, because apparently what's happening on planet Earth has never happened before. Nobody has made this kind of progress
In a short amount of time, I think.
in the short amount of
Yeah,
linear time that we're
right,
talking about.
right.
And so they're all watching. I mean, you know, you got your sociologists and psychologists from all these different places that are watching
Mm,
because they want to know how it was done.
mm,
They want to know how was it done that the
right.
people on Earth were able to make this amount of progress this quickly because
Wow.
it hasn't happened before. And so they're furiously taking notes because in other places and the places we see in the universe, we got humans all over the universe. That's no big deal. But for those who are trying to work with those things,
Mm,
they would like to know how it's done. They would like to know how it's done. And so again, going back to that one book we referred to, the Pleiadian Perspective, when they sent colonies here, you know, and the sociological progress of a colony was measured in 10 or 15,000 years, you know, and so, you know, in those instances, the development of humanity took thousands of years.
well, you have to admit, though, that raising the frequencies of the planet so that the dark or the lower frequencies can't function, it was a good idea.
Oh
So
yeah,
I mean, kind of that was really a, part of it, I think that, that helped people to wake up from their slumber, to see there's a solution as well. That I could, that definitely was part of the plan. I could see that working quite well.
Yeah. And so in any event, uh, it gives some of us great hope. It
Hmm.
gives some of us great hope as to the progress we're making. Like I say, I didn't come on the planet, for anything other than to infuse knowledge and to hold energy. And there's many of us here, yourself included.
Yep.
We're holding space, we're holding energy that otherwise would not be available.
Right. Talk
And
about
so,
digging your heels in to the earth.
yeah. So again, the efforts that are being made by many, across the planet to simply hold the energy. And I found out about some of those, and it's quite interesting.
Well, I wanted to just make a comment, Winston, if I could.
Sure.
Right here at this moment. This is what we're dealing with, folks. This is on the Q board. Maybe I should just talk a little bit more about what's going on with Q. This is from Susan Orlean, who says that we will not stand by idly if he is confirmed. You've been warned. This is a Twitter. This is a public threat. I mean, could you imagine 5 years ago this person would be arrested? It's amazing how they're getting away with this. This is why the president has to declare martial law. Now does it make
Yep.
sense? Now does it make sense? Okay, so that's why, this is what it's talking about here. Talking about we stand together, we fight together, organized riots are being planned, countermeasures are in place, resistance far smaller than portrayed by the mainstream media. So it's not as much and as many, just the ones who sold out took the money to destroy this country. As we have seen in the Project Veritas investigations, there are more people than we know who are totally who are traitors to this country and trying to push a socialist, fascist, Nazi agenda. Okay, and then it says here attacks will intensify. You collectively are a massive threat. So the more people who wake up and know what's going on, the quicker we can have our golden age of humanity. Okay, censorship applied to scale down impact reach. Absolutely, it's failing though. Trust yourself. The public is awakening. Ready when you are. Okay, so here Q is talking about every vote counts. Please fight, fight, fight. Red wave or red tsunami midterm elections is coming up. But look, pain in DC. It is happening. The Democrats offering to kill. This is how you know. Why didn't they talk about? I mean, because you can't validate Q in a Senate hearing, right? So Q says here, and this was a couple days ago, that the Democrats offered to kill the sexual assault allegation against Judge Kavanaugh in exchange for immediate pullback of the declassification of the FISA application.
Uh-huh.
This is, folks, it's fraud. It's just total fraud. But the judge is going to be confirmed, and I'm waiting. It is. I did get a message as we're talking, and there is a hearing. He will be. The vote will be happening this morning. Like I said, by the time I publish this, it'll probably be done. But again, I wanted to just uh, highlight some other things that are happening. Yeah. So right now they've deleted Senator Graham's speech, so it's going to be altered when you get back to Yahoo, or saying here that Yahoo or Twitter, YouTube has deleted the original, which we would expect them to do. So this is what's happening, and this is really the key at this point to show the treason during wartime, as Winston said. That when you're actively engaging with the enemy, like Dianne Feinstein was with China, you will be tried in a military tribunal. So this is what I'm saying. This is what they know they're up against, and but they're not going to go without a fight. I'm sorry to be scrolling, but I wanted to make it large enough so when I screen share, you guys can all see it. There's been a lot of posts going on, so So the Supreme Court justices right now to receive full-time security details, of course, they need that, especially Kavanaugh and his family. So, I have to say one thing though, Winston. I mean, at least a judge now knows what it's like being on the other side of that bench and being
Yeah,
wrong.
that's true.
And let me tell you something. The way I spoke a few minutes ago, if you notice there was anger in it, it's because it was false, it was wrong, it was injustice. That's why you feel anger. And I can relate to to Judge Kavanaugh with his anger, because when you are wrongly and falsely accused, you are angry about it when it destroys your family, when it destroys your reputation, when you can never get that back, when it does irreparable harm. Yes, you're angry at it that it could happen, that sadly our system failed us all to allow this to get to this point, when the presumption of innocence is gone, and all it takes is someone uh, to be tempted by some other agenda or motivation to get up there and accuse somebody of something, to bear false witness. This is what we're talking about, Winston, to bear false witness. And I think there, I think there's going to be. I think this woman has ruined her career and ruined any chance of her to prevail anywhere. She has ruined her own. I can't imagine her getting a job or keeping a job unless it's within these liberal institutions. But as you know, the universities are funded by the globalists, so that's where they get their endowments from. So that's why they
Got
can.
off their money.
Yeah, it's all for money, folks. It's all about money. This is how the world got corrupted, with money. But it was forced on us from, what was it, Sirius star system? They
Say it
had
again. Oh,
what was it, the Sirius star system, where the money concept of money and to enslave
no,
people.
I think they came out of the Orion system. Some of those
Yeah,
reptilian and Anunnaki types. But I want to comment on what you had shared there a moment ago with that threat.
right.
See, this is typical.
Hmm.
When someone is trying to promote a falsehood or a lie,
Hmm. Right.
when they can't win the day
Yeah.
with their falsehood,
Hmm.
they'll always revert to physical violence
Hmm.
or threats of physical violence.
Yeah.
And so, again, when you see somebody doing something like that, making those kinds of threats, you know that they have lost the day. They have lost the battle. Because if they have to revert to threats of physical violence,
Right.
then it means their fraud has not worked. And the only thing left in their mind is violence.
Wasn't that the communism book, the handbook of overtaking a government through
Mm-hmm.
fascism? That's the Saul Alinsky, isn't it? The Saul Alinsky
Well, I don't read
MO
Saul
of,
Alinsky, but I mean,
yeah,
anybody that's been involved, very much with anything, knows that.
yeah,
I mean, just on one-to-one basis. I mean, I've seen people sit, and debate back and forth about this and about that, and then when someone starts to lose the argument,
right.
they'll fight. They'll start to become violent. And so when you see someone making threats of violence, you know that whatever agenda they were trying to promote, it has failed. And so, and again, let me comment so that people would understand. Like I had mentioned, way back in 1972,
Mm.
when I was still stationed with the Marine Corps, I was a part of Riot Squad. And like I say, when things got out of hand in D.C. with some of those demonstrations that went into riot mode, and the D.C. police lost control, they started to call in the military. And like I've mentioned, military tactics and procedures are entirely different than police protocols. And so if these things start and the military's call, I mean, I'm just saying, stay away from that stuff. stay away from it. Because if when the military comes in, it's not a pretty affair. I'll put it that way. And so I mean, just go ahead, throw a beer bottle or something at a Marine, see what happens. To see what happens when you do that. You might throw a beer bottle at the cop, get away with it with whacking the head, but don't get involved in that stuff. And encourage all your friends to stay. If there are those kind of things going on, encourage your friends to stay away, because nothing good will come from violence. It's just not going to happen. So anyway, like I say, these are the times that trouble men's souls. so cool heads should prevail. And as we start to escalate the frequencies and the ascension, if you want to call it that, the methods that are being used by some will not promote that ascension, will not promote it. So, I mean, for those who are interested in improving their lives and the prospects for the future, just be very careful, that you don't become sucked into something that would physically prevent you from your ascension, like getting shot. So anyway, we can go on with other things if you want to. You're on mute.
Okay, just wanted to let our viewers know that you can watch, well, I mean, this is not live, our recording, it's pre-recorded, but you can always watch these hearings on the Goldfish Report 24/7 news page on Facebook. Just wanted to let that, and I usually always post a tweet also, those same links, and it's on Twitter as well. So, so we'll just see what happens. Okay, so, well, thank you for that, Winston, and I think what we wanted to point out today was that as sad as it is what we saw yesterday, and I think they're going to confirm, so it's going to be this Wednesday is October 3rd. This coming Wednesday is the day we're going to have this emergency broadcast test to our phones. Whether they do a test and then immediately do another announcement, who knows? But the president needs to know that that he can communicate, because when they declare martial law, I guess what they're expecting, Winston, is that the social media, the channels, everything will be banned. As Q was saying, they're going to completely limit the outreach of any information. They're going to control all of it, actually. So, which is, going to give them evidence for their antitrust lawsuits that are coming. So whatever they do, whatever actions they're going to take right now, completely defensive actions are not going to work in their favor. And I'd also like to say that that this is a wake-up call for many judges at this time as well, because the president is going to be replacing many judges. I think those sealed indictments have the names of many judges on them. So I think that once this martial law is declared, for anyone who had any doubts that this is what's happening, I think it's time to have a wake-up call and to seriously, you know, do what's right and uphold the Constitution, even if we're in wartime. How do they do that, Winston? If you're at wartime and the normal Constitution is suspended, then what are the rights of people in general if you're in a courtroom? Do you know? That's kind of a broad
Well,
question, but I mean, in general, do people still have rights of any kind?
you never lose any right, but what is
Wow.
suspended are your privileges.
Okay, privileges.
And so people talk about constitutional rights. What they're really talking about are constitutional privileges.
Yeah, I misspoke. That's what I meant to say.
No,
But,
no,
but,
you
but
no,
people,
you said it right, as is generally accepted. But what
right,
I'm pointing
generally.
out, you ask about wartime, were your
Yeah.
rights suspended? And the answer is no, never. But your privileges are, and privileges are things that are granted by governments.
Thanks to our
Right,
SS5.
rights are given. They're God given, And so to answer your question, no, rights are not suspended during wartime.
Mm.
Privileges are.
All right. Well,
For
people
instance,
confuse that.
habeas corpus, yeah, habeas corpus is suspended.
Okay.
But
Right.
habeas corpus is not a right. Habeas corpus is a privilege.
Right. And we agree to those privileges because of the SS5 form that we signed to get us
Well, some
application.
of them. I mean,
Okay.
just even
Okay.
even something like even a historical thing like habeas corpus. During times
Right.
of war, habeas corpus is suspended
Jeez.
because it's a privilege.
Right.
And there are many privileges that are granted
Mm-hmm.
by governments, for the normal functions of those governments and so forth. But if a government goes to war, it can suspend
Mm-hmm.
privileges,
Hmm.
and it happens all the time.
Okay. Well, we'll go into that a little bit more detail when we'll prepare for that, because I think it would be important to know, because once we have this martial law, people want to really understand what does it mean. And I think generally when the president does announce martial law, I'm sure they're going to explain, give a few pointers in terms of making sure people are reassured of certain basic
Okay, let's go
functions.
back again. First off, the President of the United States or the President of the United States of America cannot declare martial law. It's the Commander
Military.
in Chief. Marshal, military,
I know,
marshal,
but
military.
well, as commander in chief, he can do it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Commander in Chief, not as President.
It's the same person. That's what I meant to.
Maybe,
That's what I'm talking about. Okay.
maybe.
Do you want to get on to our question and answers, Winston?
Well, I can see you want to.
Well, we have it. It's like we have 40 minutes left, so we might as
No, okay, whatever. Well, let me first make an announcement.
well. Okay.
Is that one of my privileges has been suspended, and that is Solutions in Commerce has been suspended under threat by agents of the present government. So Solutions in Commerce is no longer a website that you can go to. So if you ain't got it by now, folks, you ain't gonna get it until this new government comes into effect, and then we'll come back up as Solutions in Commerce if it's needed. Like I say, so many of the things with the changes and so forth that we've had to deal with in the past probably will not be needed in this new republic that's coming, and the SAR and so forth. And so that's okay. But as I looked at some of the questions, again, there are questions that relate to the circumstance that exists today,
Hmm.
so I can answer some of those things. But as far as Solutions in Commerce or WISIC.com, it has now been suspended. So anyway, hopefully people were able to get all the products and so forth that they had wanted
Right.
up to this time. And when we do come back up under the new government, will all those things be necessary anyway? Maybe, maybe not. But certainly when we come back up, uh, our direction will be more toward humanitarian rather than worried about some of these other trivial things. I mean, I've said about all I want to say about stuff anyway. I mean,
Right.
goodness gracious, how
Yeah.
long? I mean, I've been up almost. I mean, if we hadn't made it to November, we would have been up for 14 years.
Right.
That's a long time.
Sure is.
And so these things have been available, for 14 years, and now it's been suspended. And so what we hope is through this currency redemption, I have many friends who have some of these currencies and so forth. And once they get these things redeemed, then the direction that I would like to take, because I'm a humanitarian kind of guy,
Hmm.
and so the direction that we will take on the other side of the currency redemption, we will focus more in on humanitarian That's my intent. So that's okay. Like I say, we've given out a lot of information over the years. People can have that, do with it as they will. But at this point, Solutions to Commerce has been suspended by the present government agencies. And so a lot of those things, that we would normally talk about or questions I might answer as far as technology,
Mm-hmm.
I'll no longer do
Okay.
because of the suspension.
Well, thanks, Winston. I'm sorry to hear about that, but it doesn't surprise me given who's in
Hey, hey,
charge.
14 years is a good long run, folks.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's the same entities and the power structure that has deleted our channel, deleted
Yep.
our blogs, deleted, so this the same. But as we've been talking, this is in the works of changing, and so it really looks
Yeah,
like
it
it.
is.
But you know what, Winston, by virtue of this threat, having to suspend this under threat, it just seems to me that there's a lot of people that really don't see this coming, don't see
Yeah.
these changes coming.
Well, I
Because
have
what?
talked to the military about this problem, uh, and their position is, yeah, we know who you are, we know what you're doing, we know what's been done to you.
Hmm.
We're not going to intervene individually in your case, but the solution to your problem is the master program that we're working on.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah,
okay, I'll wait.
right.
I don't need for them to come, and intervene directly in my situation.
Mm,
But I am well known in the circles of those who are making the changes.
right.
Yes, indeed, they do know who did that lien in 2012. Yes, indeed, they do know about my official appointment from the Office of International Treasury Control. They're very much aware of that. And so, like I say, we just do the best we can to help as many folks as possible. And I think over the years we've helped, many folks with a lot of different situations. We simply have, and that's good. And hopefully those who have taken the information, they can share it with their, friends, people they come in contact with, stuff. Just because our website has been suspended
Hmm.
does not mean that the information that you have in your possession, it doesn't mean you can't use it. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, obviously you were a threat, Winston, and
Always have been.
to the to the to the I would say organized crime syndicate, the financial arm of the government.
Well, yeah, that, and also on a spiritual level, like I say, I did make that report about the incident back in March of this year when I was actually physically killed,
Hmm.
and then I was resuscitated and restored to life by the lion beings.
Hmm.
I mean, I say, well, that's a pretty wild story, accusation to make, but I experienced it. I remember standing outside of my body, looking at my corpse,
Jeez.
knowing that it was dead. And then they went and brought me back. And oh, darn it, man! I thought I was done.
Yeah, jeez.
Now
I'll
they
tell you.
have brought me back, so I guess there's more that I have to do.
Well, we're
That's
glad you're
okay.
here, Winston. And like you
Well,
said, for the uh, the previous reports that we've done, all this information, this is part of our history.
yeah.
And as Winston has said over and over and over again, it's important to know so we don't repeat it. We don't allow this to happen again. We have to understand how the system was constructed because we're still in it, okay? I don't know, Winston, how quickly this transition is going to happen, how quickly it will take to transition, because people didn't even know what we had to begin with. Maybe it won't take that long because so many people didn't have a clue, and I'm not saying that in a judgmental way. I'm just saying as a matter of fact, because it was hidden from us. We didn't get to know the nature of the public, the private, and things of that nature, and how commingling them, caused certain problems.
Well, like I say, we just have to work with the tools at hand. Now we have money at hand. We work with that too. It's only a tool.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something we use. Now I will report my personal belief is at the end of the physical budget for the federal government as it presently appears runs out at the end of this month, which is only what 2 or 3 days away. So in order for the federal government to continue, they got to come up with some money come October 1, which means that the Congress has to raise the debt ceiling, and I'm not really sure they're going to.
Well, the Fed announced they were going to increase interest rates, so I guess
Yeah, I know, but
that's what
all
their
that
plan
did
is.
was kill the real estate market,
Yeah.
and it is. The real estate market's dead. People who want to sell homes can't sell them because people can't get loans.
Mm.
Mortgages and that kind of thing. The only people that can buy houses are people that have enough money to buy it outright.
Mm.
But the real estate market's dead. And that's an indicator of the health,
Mm.
if I can use that word, of the financial system as it presently exists.
Mm.
And so are the banks going to be able to pull off another coup like they did in 2008? And the answer is no.
Mm.
There's no way for them to do it. Swallow the money, cut off their money. And so with the Fed raising the rates, is that a part of the correction? Is it part of what people call it a collapse again, I keep calling it correction. Is that part of that correction? The answer is yes.
Mm-hmm.
Are these, is the Fed, which apparently Trump is now in control of, I say apparently, are they acting on his instructions to raise the interest rate? And if that's the case, why would he do that? See, because I think I could probably make a good case for that. But in any event, going back to this interim government, which came online in January of 2015 with General Carter Ham as the president of this interim government. They were given access to 200 billion in gold bullion. So they created a currency known as Treasury Reserve Notes, which started trading on the international markets in the summer of 2015 and has continued to this present time. How much money do you think that the interim government now has control of? A
Quite a
whole
bit more.
bunch. A
Yeah,
whole bunch.
quite a bit more. They put it on that trading platform. That baby's been not just exponentially increased, logarithmically, I think, increased. So I think that's kind of what it
Yeah,
happened.
I've talked to some very, very wealthy people. I mean, that have huge accounts,
Mm.
and they step forward and say, well, they send in petitions to Trump saying, hey, we got a whole bunch of money, we're willing to share.
Yeah, that's
Trump
nice.
Trump says, well, let me think about it, but in essence, they don't need it.
Mm.
They don't need any help. They got plenty of money. So this interim government that's working in the background, well funded,
Mm-hmm.
well funded. And again, the new treasury. I'm not talking about Mnuchin now.
Mm.
I'm talking about the new treasury, which is in Reno on an Indian reservation.
Mm.
They got buku money. They're not worried about money at this point. They're worried about making the corrections. And so to institute the dispersal and popularization, if I can use that word, of the new United States notes, aside from the conversion from Federal Reserve notes into United States notes,
Mm.
they're also going to redeem these currencies,
Mm-hmm.
which will infuse literally trillions and quadrillions
mm,
of United States notes
mm,
into the commerce here in the United States. So we're talking about a major correction,
mhm,
major correction. So it's true that the old system is collapsing, but with the institution of these other provisions by this new interim government, which is running things in the background, we're going to see the correction and we're going to see prosperity. And as Nasara and as Gasara, which is global, we're going to see a major prosperity. Now, getting back to the 29%, if we can correct this money problem, how big of a jump
mm.
will we take as we're moving toward the, let's just call it ascension? People like that word. How big of a jump will we take with the correction of the money as I have described it here? It's going to be a huge jump, huge. And so that 29% may in fact turn into 75 or 80%. It may happen that way. And so again, as we remove the negativity, the negative energy, as we take the money away from the criminals,
Mhm.
because with this new computing system, I think some of them call it a quantum computing system,
Right, right.
in order to do a drug deal, they can
Yeah,
track that.
yeah. Well, they've got to get Israel. We've got to resolve these problems with Israel.
Same thing there.
Yeah.
It follow the money.
According to Benjamin Fulford, they were threatening to kick Israel out of this quantum system
Yeah,
so they don't participate in it if they don't return the Golan Heights to Syria and all these other conditions. So,
yeah, they'll have to go back to barter.
yeah, they're not going to be happy because they've been forcing that aggression, that psychopathic aggression on to create the greater Israel for quite a long time. And they have to,
The
they
people in
lost their,
the people in the country of Israel. I'm talking about the people.
well, I'm talking about the government
Yeah, the
of
government is
Israel.
corrupt, but the
Yeah,
people don't want that.
yeah.
And they have no way to rescue themselves without outside intervention, which is
Right.
coming.
Yes, exactly. That's why Trump said Israel was waiting. Israel was last. After Saudi Arabia was Iran. I'm sorry. After Syria was Iran, and that's what they're dealing with right now. And it was either Trump or it was Q. Someone, I think, back when this had, was the boards were becoming popular, the 8chan
Yeah.
board and such, that Israel was last. Because, I mean, and it was funny because you have to realize Trump, you had to know what he was doing. You had to know that he was keeping his friends close and his enemies closer. The Sun Tzu, Art of War, folks. He's a master chess player, even if it's not him who's, got the plan. He's doing it quite well. And
Oh,
and all
like
of
I
us
say,
had,
he's very talented.
well, this is why the media went nuts, trying
Yeah.
to disqualify him, trying to disqualify QAnon. As soon as QAnon came out, anybody who was reporting on Q was deleted. Our blogs were deleted. My three GoldFish Report blogs, Canary Chronicles blogs, Cherubim Wishes blogs, they were all deleted on WordPress. So look, this was it. This was the major crackdown. The problem is they can't see that it's over, and they just can't secede. They can't admit loss and failure, and they could have made deals to at least have and preserve some sort of quality of life, maybe. But some of these crimes are so egregious. Many of them we won't even know about because I don't know. According to Q, 60% of what kind of crimes that have been going on aren't even going to be made public. And if you can do it under a military tribunal, I guess, Winston, you would know maybe that you don't need to even make them public, but we want them public. We want to know as much.
Well, I
We
think
want to see these people held accountable for their crimes.
I would think, that perhaps some of that at the start may be more public, but
Yeah.
once you've seen it once, you don't need to watch all that because it'll put you into depression.
Yeah.
Now, let me say in regards to, the fall of the
Yeah.
cabal, I can remember back, I don't know, maybe 6 or 8 years ago, a friend of mine who works in high positions in international finances and so forth was actually
Mm,
approached by Evelyn de Rothschild.
mm.
He wanted my friend to take over the whole organization on the basis that he said, my kids are too stupid to run it. And my friend said, no, I don't want to have anything to do with your kingdom.
Cabal. Yeah, exactly.
He didn't want to get involved in that because he knew it was corrupt.
Mm.
But too much inbreeding
Yeah. They're not
will cause that.
right. Lower IQs and stuff.
Well, yeah. Well, and then some of the young people
Mm.
came onto the planet and said, no, we're not going to do that.
Right.
I mean,
Of
this
their
whole thing,
families. You mean
huh?
of those families?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Some of the members of those families that
yeah,
incarnated said, I'm not doing this. Exactly.
uh,
Well,
yeah,
that's why I started doing these interviews with when GoldFish Report started, with the ambassador of the Red Dragon family, because he, I believe, was among that philosophy, that thinking. And of course, uh, well, I'll let you finish what you're saying. So yes, it's very
no, I'm
true that
finished.
many did not want to go along with it. They wanted more. They wanted peace because they wanted their own children to prosper.
Yeah,
They just came on the planet with different hearts. Absolutely.
exactly. Yeah, we had talked quite a bit about those reports by that Michael Newton on souls, and all that kind of stuff. So you can see how that would happen, how that would work. And so, like I say, the reason we have so many people on the planet right now is because all of those who have been connected to this particular planet, who have made an investment
Hmm.
through whatever incarnation or series of incarnations that they have done, want to be here right now because they know this is the end and we're moving into higher dimensions. That's the reason why we have 8 billion on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're all interested to protect their investment that they have made. So that's why they're here now. And
Genetic investment.
I'm giving them the thumbs up on that. Great, great.
Right.
We're happy to see that you are still interested in what goes on here. So all those who have been here, who have made an investment, who've had life's experiences and all these kind of things, you are welcome to be here. You're welcome to be here. And so it's moving in a real good direction. And so I think we can appreciate that. In any event, let's look at some of the questions. As I have mentioned, my privilege to profit people with technology has been suspended because that privilege was measured in Federal Reserve notes. It was a privilege. And so when I produced technologies, DVDs, whatever, those things were compensated to me in Federal Reserve notes. So yes, Solutions in Commerce, that activity was a privilege which had been suspended at present. But when we have United States notes, whereas my efforts are not funded by a privileged currency, will things change?
Aha.
And so I hope people see the point of this. This is a real life demonstration of the things we have spoken of for a good long while now.
Right.
Yeah, I was operating on a privilege. I
Right.
absolutely was.
Well, we all are at this point.
Yeah. So, like I say, one of the efforts of the establishment that is shortly to be removed, has been to keep people like me and like you and many, many others in poverty,
Right.
because they thought that if we were in poverty, that we could not have the influence
Right.
that we've had. But it's the exact opposite. It's because of the fact that we have been operating hand to mouth
Mm.
that the message has produced the energy that has reached so many people. You see what I mean?
Yep.
Because when I first got involved in all these things, years and years ago, I realized that in the world as I perceived it at that time, that I thought that power came from larger and larger amounts of money. And every attempt that I made, and I had many opportunities, many of the attempts that I made, which should have produced large, very large amounts of money, were all thwarted.
Right.
And so I'm seriously at that point challenging Saint Germain on that. I said, well, how in the world can I get all these things done? You keep preventing me from having access to large amounts of money. How in the world am I going to get all this stuff done? Finally I woke up and said, oh, okay. It's an energetic thing. It's an energetic thing. So all of us, who have labored in this vineyard, if I can use it that way, have done so from a position of poverty, relative poverty, I should say, relative poverty, because the energy that that would have been produced had we had access to a lot of money, the energy would not have been the same. And so when you talk about the energetics of what's been done, we could not have done that if we had have had access to a whole lot of money. And so when we first started out, with solutions in commerce, I mean, yeah, I can remember. Going to the post office every couple of days just to see if somebody had ordered the product. I can literally remember that, hoping that somebody had, because we needed to recover, on our investment in producing, because it's very expensive to do that. And so, I can remember going to the post office every day with my fingers crossed, hoping that somebody had ordered something so that we could continue on. And literally, it took us 3 years to turn the corner. And we did it all on a cash basis. If we had the cash, we would do it. If we didn't have the cash, we simply didn't do it. But, in retrospect, thinking of the energy that we were creating, I could see the value of the process that we simply had to do in order to accomplish what we have. You see?
Let me just interject something here, Winston.
Yes, ma'am.
So
You
we're
sure
we're
can.
down to like 15 minutes, 20 minutes left. As we're waiting, as we're doing this, we're recording early Friday morning here, and right now on Twitter we have the Hill reporting that the American Bar Association calls on the Senate to hold off the Kavanaugh vote until an FBI can investigate. But we already came. So when you have the Bar Association Let me tell you, the stakes are very high, folks, higher than you can even imagine as to what's going on in this. And this isn't simply about, this is not only about replacing a vacancy on the Supreme Court, is it, Winston?
Well, I'll report on that because a good part of the Congress, senators, and legislators both are members of the Bar Association, and they swore an oath.
Right.
They swore an oath first to the bar, the Temple Bar in the City of London. They swore an oath first to that, and then subsequently, when they took a public office, they swore another oath. Now, which oath came first?
Right. You can't serve
So,
two
so
masters.
no, you can't.
That's right.
And so when the Bar Association comes along and says, you know, you better do this because you swore that you would, how do you think they're going to take that? They're either going to have to resign their bar number in order to uphold the other oath they took. That's only honorable.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I will say that I was able to accomplish some time ago, about 2 years ago. I did put a very, very huge lien in against the holding company that owns the bar associations in North America. And that lien is in the hands of the IMF, who are refusing to liquidate that lien. And that's why the bar still has the power that they have. And so if there's any, you know, if you want to trace it back and back and back, put it right at the feet of the IMF.
Yeah, I
Because
think
they're refusing to liquidate that lien.
didn't Judge Anna do the same thing? She put that
I
lien.
don't know. I don't know what she's done.
Okay.
I don't keep track of all that. I
No,
mean,
but I think
she's
she
doing
also
so
put.
many things. I can't keep track of everything.
Yeah,
I
it's
just know
true.
what I've done.
Yeah, I understand. I just know that it was very public. That there was, I
Yeah,
believe.
it's $273 trillion lien or something involved with some, you know, retired judges or something like that. I mean, I remember some about that, but I'm just talking about what I have done.
Mm.
And that is, you know, a lien's no good unless you can make it work.
Collect on it, exactly.
So I put it into the hands of the IMF using certain procedures from my official position, and the IMF is refusing to liquidate.
Yeah.
The IMF is going away too.
The power control of the planet is
It's
at
the
stake.
energetics.
Yeah, is at stake.
See, it has to do in commerce. Everything is either honor or dishonor. If you act in honor, then everything works. If you act in dishonor, then you have to be liquidated yourself. That's just pure law merchant law. Just pure law merchant law, which is substantive law. And so when I go to an institution like the IMF and say, okay, I have this liability over here, which needs to be liquidated, and they refuse to do that, that's a dishonor. And under law merchant law, that institution would simply just have to go away. So I accomplished quite a few different things, you know, by doing that. But again, it's based upon honor versus dishonor.
Right.
And if you do not act honorably in commerce, the law merchants will destroy you. And that's exactly what we're doing. I am a law merchant. And so that's the process we've done.
Makes sense. This makes sense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, like I say, you know, there's a lot of interesting things that go on, you know. But my message is corrections in place. It is being slowly but surely announced. And, you know, the high probability is that in order to function properly, and, you know, again, this business with United States notes and announcement of the redemption of the currencies and all these kind of things got held up yet again because it was apparently found out that Mr. Mnuchin was actually on the payroll for George Soros. So they had to go back, take his name off all the documents, and bring somebody else in to sign it. If they'd have called me, I'd been happy to go sign it for them. Do I have authority to do that? Hell yeah, I do.
Hmm.
They didn't call me, but I could have. If they'd have called me, I'd have gone and signed those documents. We don't need Mnuchin. But in any event, apparently somebody else, whoever it is, I don't know. But anyway, they wouldn't replace names on those documents so that these things could start to roll out. And so we expect, uh, here shortly for this to roll out. And so when we come under the when we are taken out of the jurisdiction of the Federal Reserve note
Mhm.
and go into the commercial jurisdiction of the United States note, then we're talking about different privileges now, aren't we?
We are, and I think that's very confusing to people what a privilege is versus what a right is, and how it came to be a privilege versus a right. And it's probably a topic of conversation we can have on another
Well, that's
report.
what we have gone through that. We had talked about on the 4th of July about unalienable rights.
Right, but I'm talking about like more enunciate them more, like be more specific about rights. I mean, look, you don't know that you don't have rights until what we think are rights, until you walk into a courtroom and they tell you you have no rights, and it's news to us.
Well, by the fact you walked in there, that proves you don't have rights.
But people don't understand why. We need to put it into context. Winston, you're not from here, so stop. You have to understand that there's people who are just trying to, to kind of, you know,
Well, I'm
put this
trying to
into
give at least
context.
some hints,
I know.
that would put people into that thought
Yeah.
process, and
Well, you
maybe
have.
perhaps they would actually be able to draw the same conclusions that I have from existing things.
No, because your knowledge is very unique to you, Winston. It's not that, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just that you have like this other background knowledge that helps you see things differently. It's like
That I
you're,
brought with me.
yeah, you brought with you, and this is what I'm saying. It's like, everybody needs a pair of Winston glasses. That's how that would help. Okay.
I don't know about that, but it, uh, folks, it ain't that hard. It ain't that hard. If you will go into your heart to do the assessment on anything that you hear or see, go into your heart to determine the value of the things that you perceive around you, because your brain will trick you. We've shown that. That voice to skull crap. I mean, that is real technology. They've had this for a long, long, long time. Aside from other technologies. And then this last report we did with Scott, Scott demonstrated how you can remove nanobot technology from your body. And look how much trouble we had putting that on. I mean, we were interrupted 4 times. That one video is in 4 segments. People don't realize it perhaps, but that video is in 4 segments.
Yeah, we had
Because
some.
when we would come to a certain point, man, the artificial intelligence and others would knock your computer down.
Yeah, yeah, and
I
the
mean,
hell.
people don't realize how much trouble we had to go. I mean, it was a lot of work just to actually able to produce and then get that particular video into such a shape that it could actually be posted
As one piece.
as one page. We actually had to go on the other side of the planet to find somebody that could do it for us.
Yeah. I don't know why we had issues. We didn't have, it shouldn't have been, but we did have some issues. And by the way, just as we're going along here, The Hill has reported Kavanaugh hearing proves that politics is broken. No, Kavanaugh hearing doesn't prove it's broken. It was broken a long time ago, and there was a lot of things to prove that it was broken. You have to be careful, folks, when you're reading certain press pieces. They're going to try to spin it into an agenda, because the system is broken, the government is broken, because it's happening in the court systems, as I said in the beginning of this report. When you have, people making false accusations against you, and then you have to subject yourself to all of this, investigative intrusion investigation, and then have your privileges and rights, even as a mother, suspended or taken from you. You go without seeing your children for 100 days nearly. Let me tell you, there's nothing more disgusting and vile than to see that kind of behavior attacking good, innocent people, decent people, honorable people, people with integrity. And 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 that wasn't even all of it. I mean, I didn't explain
That
it happened
is
over
that
7 years
is that is child abuse.
from the court system itself. Absolutely it
Absolutely.
is. And 7 years it's still going on. Why does divorce take 7 years to to reconcile? Because there was like you said, follow the money. And so there was uh, well, as we spoke about previously, I mean, it is my suspicion or maybe belief that they were in fact monetizing these documents to the Treasury Department. So it's in their best interest if they have a shortfall. We know all courts are corporations because they have a rating on Dun& and Bradstreet. And if you don't believe me, go look it up. Your local county court is listed as a corporation, and they make plenty of money from bringing you into that courthouse. Okay, which is why they set their little traps up at the corner at that new red light that you never knew was there, or that four-way stop thing or whatever that you didn't know about, and they're sitting there writing tickets. So it's all folks, it's amazing how much we have working against us, and yet we still find ways to find maybe moments of joy and moments of pleasure in our life. But there have been massive amounts of I would say dark energy working against us to try to really literally destroy us. But having said that, so this is really what happens when they have a shortfall in their budget in the court system, and they're in a huge deficit. And then they start to really commit, clamping down on finding ways to make up for that shortfall. I'm sorry, folks, but if you're in the court system, it's going to be at your expense.
Yeah. Well, like I say, we're trying to get a lot of these things corrected. Uh, I think a lot of these experiences that young folks are going through might add to their life's experience in such a way that it would be beneficial. I mean, some of the things that happen, on a short-term basis, may seem traumatic. But like they always say, what don't kill us makes us stronger.
Oh,
So,
absolutely, Winston. Absolutely. I wasn't, they were trying to totally destroy me so they could exploit our, whatever finances or whatever, other agenda they had, or at least keep this docket going, keep the acrimony going as long as they possibly could, to keep, because they know women will go through ends of the earth to fight for their children. Most women will
yeah,
do that. Okay. And as long as you can continue to destroy the mother and the family unit, they'll keep you fighting, and until a woman runs out of money. And then
that's
they
it.
end up giving up, and they lose their children. They lose custody of their children because they can't find any way to support them anymore, because their families don't understand what's happening and why all this is happening. And people don't care unless it happens to them. And now that Judge Kavanaugh, this is happening not to this degree that I'm explaining, but to the degree that this has happened to him and everyone has watched, it's not, uh, I mean, they didn't go ahead and say, well, you've been accused of this, so we're going to take your kids away. But they did that to me. There was no evidence. There was no trial. There was no hearing to prove there was anything, and I did nothing. So I can tell you that I understand his anger, and the way to handle it is to stand strong, to grind your heels
Yeah.
in, and don't let them knock you down no matter what. It's devastating. It's absolutely devastating to go through something like this.
Yeah, I understand. Also, if you listen to what he said, it appears that there have been threats of violence against his family.
Right, which is why Q announced there was going to be security detail provided for him.
Yeah, I mean that's just so
Family.
ridiculous. And another thing, as ridiculous as it sounds, what's that girl that does all the press releases on the White House?
Sarah Sanders? How could
Yeah,
Sarah Sanders? Yeah.
she has to have bodyguards with her now.
Oh, she does. Getting kicked out of that Red Hen restaurant over in
Are you
Lexington,
kidding me?
Virginia.
That's,
That place has some bad vibration. Didn't I call you from Lexington, Virginia once, Winston, when
yeah,
my
you
car
did.
broke down?
Yeah, you did.
Winston saved us. He's a good friend. Winston got someone on the phone, helped us get right through this little car problem we had. Boom, boom, boom. We were back on the
Yeah.
road. Thanks.
Well, we won't talk about the caulk gun experience, will we?
Which one?
The caulk gun.
The
Okay,
clock.
this
Oh,
first
yeah,
thing,
yeah, yeah.
I'll tell people about the funny caulk gun thing, and then we'll quit.
Okay.
But due to Louisa's lack of experience in construction tools and materials, she she called me up. I mean, aside from putting together day beds, I mean, she calls me up and says, "Hey," she says, "I got a leak around a certain portion of my roof," and said, I want a caulk around there." She says, "But I don't know how to make this caulk gun work." Luckily, on my phone, I have what's called FaceTime. So I knew that I couldn't adequately describe it in words. So I said, okay. I said, let's get on FaceTime and let me see what you got. So she had gone to the hardware store and purchased a brand new caulking gun. And she didn't quite know how to make it up. And because it was new, it was hard to operate it. I'll grant that.
Oh, it was stuck. Yeah.
Yeah, as you supposed.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I walked her through how to get that caulk gun to work. Luckily, like I say, on FaceTime, I could look at what she was doing and comment on it as she was progressing.
All right.
And so finally, she got the caulk gun operational, inserted the tube of caulk, and now we got a brand new problem because I said, okay, well, we need to cut the tip of that off so that the caulk will come out. And so we got through that process. Then we had to go and puncture the membrane so that the caulk would actually come out through the tip. And so we walked through that, and so we have so much fun with some of these things. Like I say, because she had never had one in her hand before, she didn't know how it worked.
Right.
And so luckily with FaceTime and the cell phone capacity we have, I was able to help her through that. Now, if there's anybody in her area
No,
that's
we don't talk
handy,
about my area. I'm not talking about my area.
okay, I'm sorry.
It's a very big area anyway, so it covers
Uh,
a lot of people. But
Well, anyway, if some of you happen to get a call from Louisa sometime about how to operate a particular device, it's best to use FaceTime so you can see what's actually going on.
thanks, Winston. No, you were very helpful. I appreciate it. It's just, here I was out caulking my roof, and I walked into my kitchen this morning, and there were two new puddles of water. So I guess I didn't do a very good job.
Either that, or you need more areas caulked.
Man, I was taking that caulk and spreading it like icing, on some of the areas of the roof because it looked like it needed it.
Yeah.
I don't know. That stuff's terrible to
Well,
get it on you, though. But I appreciate your help, Winston. You're always there when someone needs you. So thanks a lot.
if we get past this currency redemption, then you can hire a handyman to come fix some of
Yeah.
those things for you.
You're not gonna let me live down the daybed one, though, huh?
Well, I mean, it was a traumatic experience for me. What in the world is she calling me about? Something
All right, I
about
forgot about that
frame?
one part of the frame. Okay, I thought there was something missing.
Oh, after everything, it's just friends helping friends. That's all it is. But sometimes,
I'm
you
like,
can scratch
why
your
is it?
head and try to figure out what's going on.
I'm like, why is this thing wobbling? It must be the washers. It's pretty bad. No, I'm not really stupid or anything. It's just that I asked my kid.
Lack of experience, and also you didn't have all the ingredients to make it work properly.
No,
And finally, you
exactly.
got them and figured it out.
Yeah, you know, but hey, I'm usually pretty good. I assemble everything by myself. And I'm usually pretty good at it. Okay, so, um,
All right, so like I say, we'll just end everything with a little bit of funny. Uh, but again, uh, we're looking for some progress to come here pretty quick, and so I think we're making good strides toward that.
it's good. Yeah, I think we should all kind of just, you know, uh, pray that this process goes through, quickly, and we get to Okay, they're voting on it. Now I don't have an answer yet. So, um, but they're getting really nasty. Someone told Senator Graham to shut up. It's just really unprofessional. This is not statesman or stateswoman, state women um, behavior, but it's really, it's sad, but it's for the world to see, and it's not really limited to the United States. I believe it's like
No,
this. Yeah. So it's sad that ours has to be televised in such a manner, but it does happen, I think, in all governments. And there's a lot at stake. You have Theresa May basically begging Trump not to declassify that
exactly.
FISA application because it implicates her. It implicates working with foreign governments. This is why this treason, this is sedition, this is huge, folks. It's going to shock a lot of people. But you don't, during wartime, conspire with an enemy, foreign enemies, and sell our assets, sell our information to where our assets are around the world, where our intelligence is, and conspire with them to overthrow a president and a government. I mean, this is what Washington warned us about. This is what we were supposed to protect ourselves from, folks. It's supposed to be a country of we the people, by the people, for the people, and we dropped the ball. That's why this happened. So we cannot have freedom if we're not willing to fight for it. We have to defend it, folks, and don't get complacent. And I think this is the one thing I wanted to end on, Winston, is that we can't become complacent right now and think that someone is going to do all the work for us. We've got to
Yes.
do our part. We've got to do our part, and that means spread this information far and wide. Talk to your friends and neighbors. You're going to lose friends, I'm telling you right now, until this becomes public information and people can start, getting that red pill. If they don't want to choke it down, they're going to get the suppository, right? Winston is in Winston
Maybe.
terms, because it's inevitable. They have to, you know, uh, uh, understand that this is what's happening and these are the changes going on in our world at this time. And so, but everybody has to do their part, keep in, vote, get that red wave going for November. Make sure you vote for your Republican candidate. Not that it really matters, but in this case it does, because we're really talking about freedom versus fascism. So if you're going to vote, if you want fascism, vote Democrat. If you want freedom or better quality of life, more freedom, more privileges, vote for Republicans. And that's really what it comes down to. So let's get this red wave going so we can break away from the satanic control of our world. We really
Yeah.
need this change, and we need you to do your part. It's why you're here. Right, Winston?
Yeah, but I'm starting to become less and less enthused about being here.
I know, really. Let's get
No,
a
I'm
move
here
on.
to see it. I'm here to see it through. I'll be here for a long, long time. Uh, I project I'll be on this planet for at least another 2,000 linear years.
Mm. Oh boy. Well, and
Well, I mean, that's just the job. That's just what I signed up for. I mean, I'm not regretting it, not by any means. Uh, but it's very difficult when you're in a physical body
mm,
because of the limitations, that we have to
sure.
deal with. I mean, I'm getting old, having a hard time walking, having a hard time seeing, having a hard time hearing,
Hmm.
stuff like that. But if we ever get these uh, med beds put together, then I would expect a little bit of
Right.
relief, from old age. Put it that way.
I hear you. I hear you. This third density is tough on the body. All right. Well, thanks, Winston, very much
Uh-huh.
this week, and I guess we'll uh, get to Q&A another time
Yeah, maybe.
when we can. I think things are going to progress very quickly. That whatever Q&A people have may just be suspended until any action on any of these things are going to be suspended until we get into this transition, which is, look, I mean, if we're going to start on Wednesday to have this presidential alert test, the emergency broadcast system test, then I think as soon
Do
as
you
this,
think it'll be a voicemail? Do you think it'll be a text? Did they ever say what form it would come in?
well,
Or will it be both?
it will be, let's see if I have a picture. I think that yeah, someone sent me a photo of what this looks like, and I'm going to screen share this real quick. This may be what it looks like. So we'll just wait to see if this is it. Let's see. Where's the message? Oh boy, people, I just love the viewers because everybody sends me these videos, and people are very, very thoughtful. They try to send news my way so I can publish it. Yeah, so let's see if I can get that. I'm going to screen share this. This may be what it looks like on the cell phone. So let's take a quick look at this. If everybody can see that, I'm going to try to make it a little bit bigger. See on that cell phone how it
Oh
says,
yeah, okay. So
yeah.
that may be how it comes.
Yeah, and it'll be like there'll be a loud sound. It'll take over your phone. So
Oh
as long as
wow.
it's on, it'll take over your phone. Presidential alert. This is a test of the National Wireless Emergency Alert System. No action is needed. So that may be what it looks like. Should there be a different kind of message, then just follow whatever the message tells you. That's all I can say. I
Yeah.
think this is going to be the first one. And I think they need to, I'll tell you, Winston, they're going to really, I know that we want to see it happen quicker, but there's going to be a lot of retaliation as, planned riots. This is why they need to do the martial law, which is
Take their
why,
money away from them and you won't see it.
yeah. True, but this is why they need the martial law, because they are organized. As we saw in the Q post today, they are organizing mass riots. So then you'll have the military come in and take control. And it's for our own good. So get prepared. Make sure you have plenty of food and water, stock up on things that may run short in the supermarkets or whatever. Just this way you can avoid as much interacting with the public as possible, because I think you don't know what these people are going to do, and I don't think you should be in fear, but I just think you should prepare and be smart. Try to limit your activity in the public until it's safer, until it's situation's under control, and that's what I meant. So
Yeah.
do the best you can, and let's hope and pray that this goes through peacefully, right?
Cool.
Well, thanks, Winston, and thanks for your message. And of course, we send our prayers to you, Winston, with this matter that you have. And you can send some
Send
to
your
me too.
prayers to those who instituted it. The karma they built up is going to be devastating.
True, true. But this is, these are, it's, they must have had some sort of, um, well, let's just say some insight into really where we came from, Winston, which is why they came after us.
It could be that, or they're just acting on reptilian type influence.
Possible. I just always thought that I would walk in the courtroom. I had the truth on my side, and I had nothing to hide. I had nothing to
Boy, are
worry.
you naive.
Well, this was,
I
this
know.
was 7 years ago, and
Yeah.
I truly believed that I had the truth on my side, so I had nothing to hide. I had nothing to worry about. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
Not how it works. It doesn't matter, if you have the truth on your side. It doesn't. Not in their system. Yeah.
No.
Ultimately, we'll see what happens. But they say the truth will set you free. We'll find out. For many people, it imprisoned them. So, like Julian Assange. So
Yeah.
everybody needs to realize there's many people who have made sacrifices and have stood up to the system and accepted the fate, not necessarily willingly or gladly, but have been living with the fate and consequences of standing up for what is humanly right. So all right, Winston, good luck with your situation. So you made your announcement, and that's, I think, quite clear. And I think everybody, please send your prayers this way so we can keep bringing this information to you. We will be providing information as we go along on what these changes and what the transformation means and how it may affect you and I. So,
Yeah, I think the main prayers and energy should be directed into the redemption of these currencies,
mhm,
because when the currencies are redeemed, it forces the existing government, or whatever you want to call it, to produce
mhm,
United States notes, because these currencies cannot be redeemed in Federal Reserve notes. Cannot.
right.
And so if these currencies are redeemed, they'll have to be redeemed in United States notes, which changes the jurisdiction of all of our commerce.
I have a feeling, Winston, that
So pray for that.
yeah, I have a feeling that this whole thing, once they get this under control, they get this transition underway with I think the president has to make an announcement, or whoever, whatever the current, I think President Trump will have to make some sort of announcement to make this transition. And I think it's going to be the speech that JFK started in 1961 to illustrate this was who he was, what was happening on the planet, and that this
Mm-hmm.
intervention had to happen in this way in order to overcome this and in order to bring peace to the planet. I think many people, there's enough people still alive who were there in 1961, or at least know about it enough to know that that um, you know, that threat did not go away. Just because they killed Kennedy doesn't mean that threat went away to enslave, that plot to
Yeah.
enslave. Please go back and listen to that speech because it will explain to you what's happening. You know, so I'm predicting this, and I don't like to make predictions, but my high self is telling me that it's going to be put into this context of this speech from 1961, that this
Wow.
is,
Uh-huh.
I have a feeling this is what's going to happen.
Great.
I could be wrong, but my gut feeling is telling me that that's how you're going to bridge this, from one generation, you know, how we're going to link it up for different generations to be able to understand that this just isn't something that just happened overnight. This isn't just something that happened with the Kavanaugh hearing. In case for the, you know, snowflakes who don't know anything about our history, you know, real history, you know, and don't probably take the time to learn about it. You know, this is a way to bridge, you know, that past event with what's happening today, and what the actions we see are today are in fact a continuation of what President John F. Kennedy was trying to do.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's why I was born on that day, and why I think I'm here to deliver this message too.
Oh,
So,
good.
not the same year though.
No,
Makes
not
me
the
older
same
than
year.
not the same year, but still the same. All right, Winston, have a great weekend. We'll see you next time.
Okie doke.
Okay, and let's send our prayers like Winston says, and we'll see everybody back on Monday for a POTUS report, and I'm sure it will be very heated.
I can imagine Jim's going to go ballistic.
He's pretty much probably going to go crazy on this whole, you know, Kavanaugh thing. So he was very, very pleased with Kavanaugh's testimony yesterday. He and I
Yeah.
were messaging each other, and he's very, very pleased. He feels the confirmation is completely, you know, slam dunk. But you know, we are seeing some holdouts. Harris and Booker are not. Camilla Harris and Cory Booker of New Jersey, are withholding voting, and they're not even. Camilla Harris isn't even speaking; she's refusing to speak. So we'll see what happens. Let's wish everybody luck and have a great weekend.
Okay. Thanks.
And this concludes this edition of the GoldFish Report.